The screech of brakes filled the air as Marcus watched his beat-up Honda slam into the back of the most expensive car he had ever seen. Time seemed to stop as the sound of crushing metal echoed through the quiet street. His heart pounded so hard he thought it might burst from his chest. The sleek black Lamborghini in front of him now had a huge dent in its back end, and steam was rising from his own car's broken radiator. Marcus sat frozen behind the wheel, his hands shaking as he stared at what he had done. The car he just hit probably cost more money than he would make in 10 years. Maybe 20 years. His mind raced with terrible thoughts. What if the owner called the police? What if they sued him? What if they threw him in jail? He had no insurance that would cover this kind of damage. He barely had enough money to buy food for the week. The driver's door of the Lamborghini opened slowly. Marcus held his breath, waiting to see who would step out. He expected to see an angry rich man in an expensive suit, ready to scream at him and ruin his life. Instead, a tall, beautiful black woman emerged from the car. She wore a sharp business suit that probably cost more than his rent. Her hair was perfectly styled, and even from his car, he could see the shine of expensive jewelry on her wrists. She walked toward his car with calm, measured steps. Marcus wanted to run, but his legs felt like jelly. This was it. His life was over. He would lose everything he had worked so hard for. His small apartment, his job at the warehouse, his dreams of maybe going back to school someday, all of it would disappear because of one stupid mistake. The woman knocked gently on his window. When Marcus didn't move, she knocked again, this time a little louder. Finally, he found the courage to roll down his window. He expected her to start yelling immediately, but instead, she leaned down and looked at him with concerned eyes. "Are you hurt?" she asked, her voice soft and worried. Marcus blinked in surprise. This was not what he expected at all. I'm sorry," he stammered. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to, my brakes, they don't work so good and—" "That's not what I asked," she said, cutting him off gently. "I asked if you're hurt. Did you hit your head? Are you bleeding anywhere?" Marcus touched his forehead and checked his arms. Nothing hurt except his pride and his future. "No, I'm okay. But your car. Oh God, your car. I can't afford to fix that. I don't have insurance that covers. I mean, I have some insurance but not for a car like that. I work at a warehouse and I barely make enough to—" "Hey," she said, her voice even softer now. "Breathe. Just breathe for a second." Marcus tried to take a deep breath, but his chest felt tight. This woman should be screaming at him. She should be calling her lawyer or the police. Instead, she was asking if he was okay and telling him to breathe. It didn't make sense. "What's your name?" she asked. "Marcus," he said quietly. "Marcus Johnson." "I'm Diana," she said. "Diana Washington. And right now, I'm more worried about you than I am about my car." Marcus stared at her in disbelief. "But it's a Lamborghini. It must cost like $500,000 or something." Diana smiled slightly. "Something like that. But cars can be fixed or replaced. People can't be. Are you sure you're not hurt?" "I'm sure," Marcus said, though he still felt shaky. "But what about your car? What about insurance? What about—" "Let's deal with one thing at a time," Diana said. "First, let's get you out of that car and make sure you're really okay. Then we'll figure out the rest." Marcus slowly opened his car door and stepped out. His legs were still wobbly, but he managed to stand. Diana looked him up and down, checking for any signs of injury. She was even more beautiful up close, and Marcus felt embarrassed about his old work clothes and dirty hands. "I really am sorry," he said again. "I was coming home from work and I was tired and I didn't see the light change in time. I tried to stop but my brakes are old and—" "Marcus," Diana said, putting a gentle hand on his arm. "Stop apologizing for a minute and listen to me. Accidents happen. What matters now is that nobody got hurt." Marcus looked at her like she was speaking a foreign language. In his world, when poor people damaged rich people's things, it was never this simple. There were always consequences. Always punishment. Always someone ready to make his life harder than it already was. "I don't understand," he said. "Why aren't you angry? Why aren't you calling the police?" Diana was quiet for a moment, studying his face. "Have you eaten today?" she asked suddenly. The question caught Marcus off guard. "What? Have you eaten today? You look pale and shaky, and I don't think it's just from the accident." Marcus felt his cheeks burn with embarrassment. He had eaten a small sandwich for lunch, but that was hours ago. He was planning to eat some ramen noodles when he got home, but that was all he had left in his apartment until payday. "I'm fine," he lied. Diana didn't believe him. She could see it in his eyes, in the way his shoulders slumped, in the worn-out clothes that had been washed too many times. She had grown up poor herself before her business took off. She recognized the signs. "There's a diner around the corner," she said. "Why don't we go get some coffee and figure this whole thing out?" "My treat." Marcus shook his head quickly. "No, I can't let you pay for anything. I'm the one who crashed into you. I should be paying you." "With what money?" Diana asked gently. The question hung in the air between them. Marcus felt his face get hot again. She was right and they both knew it. He had maybe $40 in his bank account and another $20 in his wallet. That wouldn't even pay for the coffee, let alone fix her car. "Look," Diana said, "I need to call my insurance company anyway and that's going to take a while. We might as well be comfortable while we wait. The diner has good pie." Marcus wanted to say no. He wanted to handle this like a man, to take responsibility and figure out how to pay for the damage himself. But his stomach was empty, his car was broken, and he had no idea what to do next. For the first time in years, someone was being kind to him without wanting anything in return. "Okay," he said quietly. "But just coffee. I don't want to cost you any more than I already have." Diana smiled, and for a moment, Marcus forgot about the crashed cars and the money he didn't have. Her smile was warm and genuine, like sunlight after a long, cold winter. "Don't worry about the cost," she said. "Something tells me this might be the best money I've ever spent." As they walked toward the diner, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that his life had just changed in ways he couldn't even imagine. He had no idea how right he was. The diner was one of those old-fashioned places with red booths and checkered floors that had seen better days. Marcus felt out of place walking in with Diana, who looked like she belonged in fancy restaurants with cloth napkins and waiters in bow ties. But she seemed comfortable here, sliding into a booth near the window like she ate in places like this all the time. "I used to come here when I was in college," Diana said, noticing Marcus looking around nervously. "They make the best apple pie in the city." Marcus sat down across from her, trying not to think about how different they must look to the other customers. Diana with her expensive suit and perfect makeup. Him with his warehouse uniform that smelled like cardboard and sweat. The waitress came over with a tired smile. "What can I get you folks?" she asked. "2 coffees and 2 slices of apple pie," Diana said before Marcus could protest. "I told you just coffee," Marcus said quietly after the waitress left. "And I heard you," Diana replied. "But I'm hungry and I don't like eating alone. You'd be doing me a favor." Marcus knew she was lying, but he didn't argue. His stomach was growling loud enough that he was afraid she might hear it. When the coffee came, he wrapped his hands around the warm mug and let the heat soak into his fingers. "So," Diana said, "tell me about yourself, Marcus Johnson." "There's not much to tell," Marcus said, staring into his coffee. "I work at Thompson Warehouse. I pack boxes and load trucks. I live in a small apartment about 10 minutes from here. That's pretty much it." "What did you do before the warehouse?" Marcus shifted uncomfortably. "Different jobs. Construction when I could get it. Kitchen work. Whatever paid the bills." Diana waited for him to say more, but he stayed quiet. She could tell he was embarrassed about his situation. She had been there herself once, working 3 jobs just to pay rent and buy groceries. "I used to work in restaurants too," she said. "Waited tables, washed dishes, did prep work. Some of the hardest jobs I ever had." Marcus looked up at her in surprise. "Really? Really? I worked my way through business school doing whatever I could find. Some nights I was so tired I fell asleep standing up." The pie arrived and Diana pushed one plate toward Marcus. He wanted to refuse, but it looked amazing, and he couldn't remember the last time he had eaten anything that wasn't from a can or a microwave. "What kind of business do you have now?" Marcus asked, taking a small bite of pie. "I own a company that helps other businesses with their technology," Diana said. "We design websites, manage their computer systems, help them sell things online. It's not as exciting as it sounds, but it pays well." Marcus nearly choked on his pie. "You own a whole company?" "Started it 5 years ago with a loan and a lot of hope," Diana said. "Now we have 40 employees and offices in 3 cities. Marcus stared at her. "And you're sitting here with me instead of calling your lawyer to sue me for everything I have." Diana laughed, a warm sound that made Marcus's chest feel funny. "What would be the point? You can't get blood from a stone, and besides, that's not who I am." "But your car is just a car," Diana finished. "Yes, it's expensive, but I didn't buy it to show off. I bought it because I worked hard and I wanted something nice for myself. But it's still just metal and plastic and glass. It can be fixed." Marcus ate another bite of pie, trying to understand this woman who seemed to live in a completely different world than his. Most people wouldn't see it that way. Most people didn't grow up eating government cheese and wearing clothes from thrift stores, Diana said quietly. The honesty in her voice made Marcus look up. For the first time since the accident, he saw something in her eyes that looked familiar. It was the same look he saw in his own mirror every morning. The look of someone who had struggled and survived. How did you go from that to owning a company? He asked. Diana smiled, but there was sadness in it too. A lot of hard work, a lot of lucky breaks, and a lot of people who believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. They sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes, eating pie and drinking coffee. Marcus couldn't remember the last time he had sat somewhere warm and safe with someone who seemed to actually want to talk to him. Can I ask you something? Diana said finally. Marcus nodded. What do you want to do with your life? I mean, besides working at the warehouse. The question hit Marcus like a punch to the stomach. Nobody had asked him that in years. Most people in his situation stopped thinking about dreams and focused on survival. I used to want to go back to school, he said slowly. Maybe study computers or business. But that was a long time ago. Why computers? Marcus felt foolish, but something about Diana made him want to tell the truth. I like figuring out how things work. When I was a kid, I used to take apart old radios and TV sets just to see what was inside. In high school, I was pretty good with computers, but I never had one of my own to practice on. Diana leaned forward, suddenly very interested. What happened after high school? My mom got sick, Marcus said quietly. Cancer. I was supposed to go to community college, but I had to work instead to help pay for her treatments. She died 2 years later, and by then I was so far behind, it seemed too late to start over. I'm sorry, Diana said, and Marcus could tell she meant it. It's okay. It was a long time ago. How long ago? Marcus did the math in his head. 8 years. So you're 26 now? Marcus nodded. That's not too late for anything, Diana said firmly. I didn't start my company until I was 28. Marcus wanted to believe her, but hope was a dangerous thing when you lived paycheck to paycheck. It's different when you don't have money. College costs too much, and I can't afford to quit my job to go to school. There are ways, Diana said. Night classes, online programs, financial aid. It's not easy, but it's possible. They talked for another hour about everything and nothing. Marcus found himself telling Diana things he had never told anyone, about his dreams, his fears, his loneliness. Diana listened without judging, without trying to fix everything, just accepting his words like they mattered. When the waitress brought the check, Diana paid without letting Marcus see the total. They walked back to where their cars were still sitting in the middle of the street, looking like the scene of a crime. What happens now? Marcus asked, dreading the answer. Diana pulled out her phone. Now I call my insurance company and get a tow truck for both our cars. Then I call my mechanic and see how long it will take to fix mine. And then you sue me? Diana looked at him seriously. Marcus, I want you to listen to me very carefully. I'm not going to sue you. I'm not going to call the police. I'm not going to ruin your life over an accident. But what about your insurance? Won't they come after me? Let me worry about that, Diana said. I have very good insurance and very good lawyers. They'll handle everything. Marcus felt like he was going to cry. He couldn't remember the last time someone had been this kind to him. Why? He asked. Why are you doing this? Diana was quiet for a long moment, looking at his face in the glow of the street light. Because 8 years ago, I was driving home from my second job at midnight when some drunk driver ran a red light and totaled my car. I didn't have good insurance. I didn't have money for a lawyer. I didn't have anyone to help me. What happened? I had to take the bus for 6 months until I could save enough money for another used car. It set me back almost a year financially. But the worst part wasn't the money, it was how the other person treated me. Like I was nothing. Like I didn't matter because I was poor. Marcus understood now. Diana wasn't helping him because she was rich. She was helping him because she remembered what it felt like to be powerless. I swore that if I ever had the chance, I would treat people differently, Diana continued. Everyone deserves kindness, especially when they're scared and have nowhere to turn. The tow trucks arrived then, and for the next hour they dealt with insurance forms and police reports and all the practical details of the accident. Through it all, Diana stayed by Marcus's side, helping him understand what was happening and making sure nobody treated him badly. When it was finally over and both cars were loaded onto trucks, Marcus realized he had no way to get home. His apartment was too far to walk and he didn't have money for a taxi. I'll drive you, Diana said like she could read his mind. You don't have to do that. You've done enough already. I want to, Diana said simply. As they sat in the back of the taxi she called, Driving through the quiet city streets toward his neighborhood, Marcus felt like he was living in someone else's life. This morning he had been just another invisible person struggling to get by. Tonight he was sitting next to the most amazing woman he had ever met, and somehow his biggest disaster had turned into something that felt almost like hope. He didn't know it yet, but Diana was feeling the same way. Marcus woke up the next morning wondering if the whole thing had been a dream. But when he looked out his window and saw the empty parking space where his car usually sat, he knew it had really happened. Diana Washington had crashed into his life, or rather he had crashed into hers, and somehow everything felt different. He got ready for work the same way he always did, but taking the bus instead of driving. As he sat in the back watching the city go by, he kept thinking about the conversation in the diner. Diana had listened to him talk about his dreams like they actually mattered. She had made him remember parts of himself he had buried under years of just trying to survive. At the warehouse, his supervisor Jim noticed Marcus seemed distracted. "You okay today, Johnson?" Jim asked during their lunch break. "You've been staring off into space all morning." "Just tired," Marcus said, which wasn't really a lie. He had stayed awake most of the night thinking about Diana and wondering if he would ever see her again. "Well, snap out of it. We've got a big shipment coming in this afternoon and I need everyone focused." Marcus nodded and went back to work, but his mind kept wandering. He wondered what Diana was doing right now. Probably in some fancy office making important decisions and managing her 40 employees. The idea that someone like her had spent 2 hours talking to someone like him still seemed impossible. Meanwhile, across town, Diana was sitting in her corner office trying to concentrate on quarterly reports, but finding it just as difficult as Marcus was. She kept thinking about his eyes when he talked about wanting to go back to school, the way his face lit up when he mentioned computers, the quiet sadness in his voice when he talked about his mother. "Diana?" Her assistant, Jennifer, poked her head through the office door. "Your insurance adjuster is on line 2. Diana picked up the phone, expecting to hear about repair estimates and claim forms. Instead, she got a lecture about expensive cars and liability coverage. "Ms. Washington, I have to tell you this situation is very unusual," the adjuster said. "The other driver has minimal coverage and frankly his policy won't come close to covering the damage to your vehicle. We'll need to pursue him personally for the difference." "No," Diana said firmly. "We won't be pursuing anything. Ma'am, I don't think you understand. The repair estimate is $68,000. His insurance will cover maybe $8,000. That leaves you responsible for $60,000 out of pocket unless we go after him directly." Diana did some quick math in her head. $60,000 was probably more than Marcus made in 2 years. If they sued him, they could garnish his wages, put liens on anything he owned, destroy his credit for decades. It would ruin his life completely. "I understand perfectly," Diana said. "Submit the claim to his insurance for whatever they'll cover, and bill the rest to me directly." There was silence on the other end of the line. "Ma'am, are you sure about this? We're talking about a significant amount of money." "I'm sure." "Can I ask why?" Diana thought about how to explain it without sounding crazy. "Let's just say I don't believe in kicking people when they're down." After she hung up, Diana sat back in her chair and stared out her office window at the city below. $60,000 was a lot of money even for her. But it wasn't enough to hurt her business or change her lifestyle. For Marcus, it would have been absolutely devastating. She had been telling the truth when she said everyone deserved kindness. But there was more to it than that. Something about Marcus had touched her in a way she hadn't expected. Maybe it was the honesty in his voice, or the way he had tried to take responsibility even when he was terrified. Maybe it was just that she saw something of her younger self in him. The person she had been before success and money had changed her life. Whatever it was, she couldn't stop thinking about him. That evening, Marcus was walking home from the bus stop when he saw a familiar black car parked outside his apartment building. His heart started racing as he recognized Diana sitting in the driver's seat of what looked like a brand new Lamborghini. She got out as he approached, and Marcus couldn't help but notice she was dressed more casually than yesterday. Jeans and a sweater instead of the business suit. She still looked amazing but more approachable somehow. "Hi," she said, suddenly seeming a little nervous. "Hi," Marcus replied, not sure what else to say. Is that the same car?" Diana laughed. "No, this is a loaner while mine gets fixed. Apparently $68,000 worth of damage takes a while to repair." Marcus felt sick. $68,000? "Oh God, Diana, I'm so sorry. I'll find a way to pay you back, I promise. I'll get a second job, Marcus, stop," Diana said gently. "I told you yesterday I'm not worried about the money. But $68,000? Is less than I spent on office furniture last year, Diana finished. I know that probably sounds crazy to you, but it's true. The money isn't important. Marcus stared at her, trying to process what she was saying. He made about $25,000 a year at the warehouse. The idea that someone could spend more than twice his annual salary on furniture was beyond his comprehension. Then why are you here? He asked. Diana looked down at her hands, suddenly seeming uncertain. I wanted to see how you were doing. And I wanted to ask you something. What? Are you free Saturday afternoon? Marcus blinked in surprise. Yes. I work Monday through Friday. Why? I thought maybe you'd like to see my office. My company, I mean. You said you were interested in computers and business, and I thought you might like to see how it all works. Marcus couldn't believe what he was hearing. You want to show me your company? Only if you're interested. I know it might seem boring, but we do some pretty cool stuff. We're working on this project right now that helps small businesses sell their products online, and we just finished designing a website for a children's hospital that lets kids play games while they're getting treatment. Diana stopped talking when she realized she was rambling. The truth was, she had been thinking about this invitation all day, changing her mind a dozen times about whether it was appropriate or weird or presumptuous. I'd love to see it, Marcus said quietly. Diana's face lit up with a smile that made Marcus's chest feel warm again. Really? Really? I can't imagine what a 40-person technology company looks like, but I'd like to learn. They made plans for Diana to pick him up Saturday at noon, and then she drove away, leaving Marcus standing on the sidewalk wondering what was happening to his life. 3 days ago, the most exciting thing on his horizon had been getting paid on Friday. Now he was going to spend Saturday afternoon with a successful businesswoman who seemed genuinely interested in spending time with him. Saturday couldn't come fast enough. When Diana picked him up, Marcus had changed clothes 3 times, finally settling on his best jeans and a button-down shirt he usually saved for job interviews. Diana was wearing another casual outfit, and Marcus was relieved to see she looked relaxed and happy. Ready for the grand tour? She asked as they drove through downtown. I think so. I'm a little nervous though. Why? Marcus hesitated. I've never been inside a real office building before. What if I say something stupid? What if your employees think you're crazy for bringing me there? Diana pulled into the parking garage of a gleaming 20-story building and turned to look at him. Marcus, I want you to remember something. 5 years ago, I was making minimum wage and living in a studio apartment with no air conditioning. The only difference between you and me is timing and luck. Don't let anyone make you feel like you don't belong somewhere. The elevator ride to the 15th floor seemed to take forever. When the doors opened, Marcus stepped into a world he had only seen in movies. The office was bright and modern, with glass walls and comfortable furniture and dozens of people working at computers that looked like they cost more than his car had. Welcome to Washington Tech Solutions, Diana said proudly. She introduced him to several employees, who all seemed genuinely nice and didn't treat him like he was out of place. Diana showed him the different departments: web design, programming, customer service, marketing. She explained what everyone did and how it all worked together to help their clients succeed. In the programming department, Marcus met a guy named David who was about his age and working on code for a mobile app. Diana says you're interested in programming, David said. Have you done any coding before? Just a little in high school, Marcus admitted. I always wanted to learn more, but I never had access to the right equipment or training. David's eyes lit up. Want to see what I'm working on? For the next hour, David showed Marcus how the app worked, explaining the logic behind the code and letting Marcus try writing a few simple commands. Marcus picked it up quickly, asking smart questions and making connections that impressed both David and Diana. You have a natural talent for this, David said finally. Have you ever thought about taking some online courses? There are tons of free resources for learning programming. I've looked into it, but I work long hours and I don't have a computer at home, Marcus said. Diana, who had been listening quietly, made a mental note. They spent the rest of the afternoon touring the office and talking about the business. Diana explained how she had started the company, the challenges she had faced, and the mistakes she had learned from. Marcus listened carefully to everything, asking thoughtful questions that showed he understood more about business than he realized. As they drove back to his apartment that evening, Marcus felt like his head was spinning with new information and possibilities. Thank you, he said as Diana pulled up to his building. That was incredible. I never imagined anything like that. What did you think? Diana asked. I think I understand now why you're successful. You really care about helping people, not just making money. Diana smiled. The money is nice, but you're right. The best part is knowing that we're making a difference for our clients. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment before Marcus worked up the courage to ask the question that had been bothering him all day. Diana, can I ask you something? Of course. Why are you doing all this? Showing me your company, spending time with me? I mean, I know you're being kind because of the accident, but this feels like more than that. Diana was quiet for a long time, staring out the windshield at the street lights beginning to flicker on in the gathering dusk. Honestly, she said finally, I'm not entirely sure. There's something about you, Marcus. Something that makes me want to know more. You're smart and thoughtful and genuine in a way that's rare in my world. Most of the people I meet either want something from me or they're trying to impress me with what they have. You're just yourself. Marcus felt his heart skip a beat. I don't have anything to impress you with. That's exactly my point, Diana said, turning to look at him. You're not trying to be anyone other than who you are. Do you know how refreshing that is? They looked at each other for a moment and Marcus felt something shift between them. This wasn't just about kindness anymore. This was something else, something that scared and excited him at the same time. I should go, he said reluctantly. I know, Diana said, but neither of them moved. Finally Marcus opened the car door. Will I see you again? Diana smiled. I hope so. As Marcus walked up to his apartment, he couldn't shake the feeling that his life was about to change in ways he couldn't even imagine. He was right, but the changes would be bigger and more complicated than either of them expected. Monday morning at the warehouse felt different to Marcus. He went through the motions of his job, loading boxes, checking inventory, filling orders, but his mind was somewhere else entirely. He kept thinking about the gleaming office, the sophisticated computer programs, and most of all, Diana's words about natural talent. During his lunch break, he walked to the public library a few blocks away and sat down at one of their old computers. He spent 30 minutes looking up free programming courses online, taking notes on a piece of scrap paper. There were dozens of options, but most required software he couldn't afford or computer access he didn't have. When he got back to work, his supervisor Jim was waiting for him with a frown. Johnson, where were you? Lunch break was over 10 minutes ago. Sorry, I was at the library. I lost track of time. Jim's expression softened slightly. The library? What were you doing there? Marcus hesitated. He had never talked to anyone at work about his interests or dreams. It seemed safer to keep those parts of himself private. Just research, he said finally. Research for what? Computer programming. Jim looked surprised. You know about computers? A little. I'm trying to learn more. Huh. Jim scratched his chin thoughtfully. You know, we've been having problems with our inventory system lately. The computer keeps crashing and losing data. The owner is talking about hiring someone to fix it, but that costs money we don't have. Don't suppose you could take a look at it? Marcus felt a flutter of excitement. I could try. I mean, I'm not an expert, but I might be able to figure out what's wrong. Tell you what, Jim said. If you can fix our computer problems, I'll talk to the owner about giving you a small bonus. And maybe some extra hours if you want them. It wasn't much, but it was something. Marcus spent the rest of the afternoon thinking about the warehouse's computer problems and what might be causing them. When his shift ended, instead of going straight home, he asked Jim if he could look at the system. The warehouse office was small and cluttered, with an ancient desktop computer that looked like it hadn't been updated in a decade. Marcus sat down and started investigating, checking the hard drive, looking at the installed programs and testing different functions. After an hour of work, he found the problem. The inventory software was corrupted, probably from a virus or a failed update. He spent another 2 hours cleaning up the system, removing malicious files and reinstalling the inventory program from backup files he found on the server. When Jim came to check on him, the system was running smoothly for the first time in months. I'll be damned, Jim said, staring at the screen. How did you learn to do that? Trial and error mostly, Marcus said. And a lot of reading. Jim clapped him on the shoulder. The owner is going to be thrilled. This was going to cost us at least $500 to fix professionally. That night, Marcus walked home feeling prouder than he had in years. It was a small victory, but it was his. For the first time, he had used his brain instead of just his muscles to solve a problem at work. When he got to his apartment, he found Diana sitting on the front steps of his building. Hi there, she said, standing up with a smile. I hope you don't mind me dropping by unannounced. Not at all, Marcus said, though he was suddenly very aware of how he must look after a day of physical labor. Is everything okay? Everything's fine. I just wanted to talk to you about something. They walked up to his apartment, and Marcus felt embarrassed about letting Diana see where he lived. The building was old and run down, with peeling paint and narrow hallways that smelled like cooking oil and industrial cleaner. His apartment was tiny but clean, with second-hand furniture and bare walls. "I'm sorry it's not much," he said as they sat down on his small couch. "It's perfect," Diana said, and she seemed to mean it. "It reminds me of my first apartment after college. I had a mattress on the floor and ate dinner off a cardboard box for 6 months." Marcus relaxed a little. "What did you want to talk about?" Diana took a deep breath. "I have a proposition for you, but I want you to hear me out completely before you say anything." Marcus nodded, trying to process this information. "How long would I be there?" "Initially 3 months, but if things go well it could become permanent. We're looking at making Seattle a full branch office with its own staff and client base." The word permanent hit Marcus like a physical blow. He had been hoping Seattle would be a temporary assignment, something that would enhance his resume but eventually bring him back to Diana. "What if I said no?" he asked quietly. Diana looked surprised. "You're thinking of turning it down?" "I'm thinking of asking if there's someone else who could do it instead." "Marcus, this is an incredible opportunity. You'd be making twice your current salary, managing a team of employees, building something from the ground up. It's the kind of experience that could make you a partner in the company someday." "And what about us? What about what we've been building here?" Diana was quiet for a long moment. This was the conversation she had been dreading for months. "I don't know," she said honestly. "Long-distance relationships are hard. The time difference, the travel, the separate lives. It changes things." "So you're telling me to choose between my career and our relationship?" "I'm not telling you anything. I'm giving you an opportunity and letting you decide what's most important to you." Marcus stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city where he had fallen in love with both his new life and with Diana. The choice should have been easy. Career opportunities like this didn't come along often, especially for someone with his background. But the thought of leaving Diana felt like losing a part of himself. "Can I have some time to think about it?" he asked. "Of course. But I need an answer by Friday. If you're not going, I have to find someone else quickly." That evening, Marcus walked home instead of accepting Diana's offer of a ride. He needed time to think, and the long walk through the city helped clear his head. When he got to his apartment, he called the one person whose opinion he trusted completely, his old supervisor Jim from the warehouse. "Marcus, how are you doing, kid? I heard through the grapevine that you're some kind of big-shot businessman now." "I'm doing well, Jim. But I need some advice." Marcus explained the situation. The Seattle opportunity, his relationship with Diana, and the impossible choice he was facing. "Let me ask you something," Jim said when Marcus finished. "A year ago, if someone had offered you this kind of job, what would you have said?" "I would have said they were crazy for offering it to me. And now I know I could do it well. So the only thing that's changed is that you found a woman you care about." "It's not just any woman, Jim. It's Diana. She's the one who gave me this chance in the first place. She believed in me when nobody else did. And now she's believing in you again by offering you this promotion. Maybe that's her way of showing love, giving you the tools to build the life you deserve." Marcus was quiet, thinking about what Jim had said. "Can I tell you something?" Jim continued. "I've been married for 22 years. And the best thing my wife ever did for me was push me to take a job I was scared to take. It meant we had to move to a different city and start over, but it changed our whole life for the better. What if it doesn't work out? What if I take this job and lose Diana forever? What if you don't take it and regret it for the rest of your life? What if you stay here and things don't work out with Diana anyway?" After they hung up, Marcus sat in his small apartment thinking about everything that had led him to this moment. 6 months ago, he had been a warehouse worker with no prospects and no hope. Now he was being offered the chance to run a branch office of a successful company. The scared part of him wanted to stay safe, to hold on to what he already had. But the ambitious part of him, the part that Diana had helped him discover, wanted to take the risk and see how far he could go. The next morning, Marcus asked Diana if they could have lunch together away from the office. They met at the same diner where they had first talked after the accident. "I've made my decision about Seattle," Marcus said as they sat in the familiar red booth. Diana felt her heart speed up. "And? I'm going to take it." Diana felt a mixture of pride and heartbreak. She was happy for Marcus but devastated for herself. "I think that's the right choice," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I hope so. But I want you to know that this is the hardest decision I've ever made." "Why?" Marcus reached across the table and took her hand. "Because I'm in love with you, Diana. I think I have been since that first night in this diner. And walking away from that is going to break my heart." Diana felt tears forming in her eyes. I love you too, Marcus. That's why this is so hard. So what do we do now? Diana looked at their joined hands and made a decision that surprised them both. We make these next 3 weeks count. We don't waste time being sad about what's coming. We just enjoy what we have right now. And when I leave for Seattle? We'll figure it out then. Maybe long distance will work for us. Maybe it won't. But we won't know unless we try. Marcus squeezed her hand. I like that plan. For the next 3 weeks, Marcus and Diana spent every free moment together. They went to restaurants they had never tried, took weekend trips to nearby cities, and stayed up late talking about everything and nothing. It was the most romantic and the most bittersweet time either of them had ever experienced. On Marcus's last night in town, Diana cooked dinner at her apartment. They ate slowly, both trying to make the evening last as long as possible. Are you scared? Diana asked as they sat on her couch afterward. Terrified, Marcus admitted, but also excited. Is that weird? No, it's perfect. That's exactly how you should feel when you're about to do something that could change your life. Diana, Marcus said, turning to face her. I need to tell you something. What? 6 months ago I thought my life was over. I thought I would spend the next 40 years loading boxes and counting down the days until I could retire. You didn't just give me a job, you gave me a future. Whatever happens between us, I will never forget that. Diana felt a tear slide down her cheek. You gave me something too. What? You reminded me what it feels like to believe in someone completely. To watch them grow and succeed and become everything they're capable of being. I had forgotten how amazing that could be. They held each other on the couch until dawn, neither wanting to let go. When the sun came up, they both knew everything was about to change. But they also knew that what they had built together, the love, the trust, the belief in each other, was strong enough to survive whatever came next. At least they hoped it was. Marcus's first day at Washington Tech Solutions was nothing like he expected. He had imagined sitting in a classroom with other trainees, but instead Diana introduced him to Sarah, the head of project management, who would be his mentor for the first month. Welcome to the team, Sarah said warmly. She was a woman in her 30s with kind eyes and an easy smile. Diana tells me you're interested in learning everything we do here. I want to learn as much as possible, Marcus said, trying to hide his nervousness. Good attitude. We're going to start you off easy, helping with client communications, doing basic research, and observing how we manage projects. Think of it as learning the business side while David and the programming team teach you the technical side. The first week was overwhelming. Marcus felt like he was drinking from a fire hose, trying to absorb information about project timelines, client requirements, budget management, and team coordination. But slowly things started to make sense. He began to see how all the different parts of the company worked together to deliver results for their clients. On Friday afternoon, Diana stopped by his desk to see how he was adjusting. How are you feeling? She asked. Like my brain is full, Marcus said honestly. But good full if that makes sense. I'm learning so much every day. Any regrets about leaving the warehouse? Marcus looked around the bright, busy office where people were collaborating on interesting projects and solving complex problems. Not even one. Diana smiled. I'm glad. Sarah says you're picking things up quickly. She's a great teacher. Everyone here is really patient with my questions. That's because they remember what it was like to be new. We've all been where you are. That evening, Diana offered to drive Marcus home and he accepted. As they sat in traffic, she asked him about his first week and what he thought of the work. It's different from anything I've ever done, Marcus said. At the warehouse I did the same thing every day. Here every project is different. Every client has different needs. It's like solving puzzles all day long. Do you like solving puzzles? I love it. I had no idea work could be this interesting. Diana felt a warm glow of satisfaction. She had taken a risk hiring Marcus, but it was clearly paying off. More than that, she loved seeing the confidence growing in his voice and the spark of excitement in his eyes when he talked about what he was learning. Diana, Marcus said as they pulled up to his building, can I ask you something? Sure. Why haven't you asked me out? I mean, we spend time together, we talk about personal things, and you said you like me. But we've never been on what anyone would call a date. Diana felt her cheeks warm. She had been wondering the same thing but hadn't known how to bring it up. I didn't want to complicate things while you're starting the job. I want you to succeed here because you're good at it, not because we're, whatever we are. What if I asked you out? Marcus said. Would that be different? Diana looked at him, sitting in the passenger seat of her car, wearing one of his new button-down shirts and looking more confident than she had ever seen him. Are you asking me out, Marcus Johnson? I'm thinking about it. But I want to know if you'd say yes before I risk embarrassing myself. Diana laughed. I'd say yes. Good. In that case, would you like to have dinner with me Saturday night? Somewhere nice, my treat. Marcus, you don't have to pay. Yes, I do. If I'm asking you on a date, I'm paying for the date. I might not make as much money as you do, but I make enough to take you to dinner. Diana felt something flutter in her chest. This was a different Marcus than the scared, apologetic man she had met 3 weeks ago. This Marcus was confident and proud and taking charge of his life. I'd love to have dinner with you, she said. Saturday night, Marcus picked Diana up in a taxi, wearing his best shirt and tie and carrying a single red rose he had bought from a vendor on the street corner. He had chosen a small Italian restaurant that wasn't fancy but had good food and reasonable prices. Diana was wearing a simple black dress that somehow made her look even more beautiful than usual. When she opened her apartment door and saw him standing there with the rose, her smile was so bright it made his heart skip. You look amazing, he said, handing her the flower. So do you, she replied and meant it. The dinner was perfect. They talked about work, about their childhoods, about books and movies and dreams for the future. Marcus told Diana about his mother and how much he missed her. Diana told Marcus about the early days of her company and how scared she had been that she would fail. I used to lie awake at night running numbers in my head, she said over dessert. Wondering if I could make payroll, wondering if I was crazy to think I could run a business. What kept you going? Marcus asked. Stubbornness mostly. And the fact that I didn't have anywhere else to go. I had invested everything I had in the company. If it failed, I would have lost everything. Were you ever tempted to give up? Every day for the first year. But then we landed our first big client and everything changed. Success builds on success, you know? Once I proved I could do it once, it got easier to believe I could do it again. Marcus nodded, thinking about his own situation. 3 weeks ago, he had been ready to accept that his life would never change. Now he was sitting in a nice restaurant with an amazing woman, learning skills that could transform his future. I think I'm starting to understand what you mean, he said. After dinner, they walked slowly back to Diana's apartment building. The night was warm and clear, and neither of them wanted the evening to end. I had a wonderful time, Diana said as they stood outside her building. So did I. Thank you for saying yes. They stood looking at each other for a moment, and Marcus felt the urge to kiss her. But something held him back. This was all so new, so fragile. He didn't want to rush anything. Instead, he took her hand and squeezed it gently. Good night, Diana. Good night, Marcus. As his taxi pulled away, Diana stood on the sidewalk watching until the taillights disappeared around the corner. She was falling for Marcus Johnson, and for the first time in her adult life, that didn't scare her. It felt right. The next few weeks fell into a comfortable routine. Marcus threw himself into learning everything he could about the business. He spent his days working with different departments, his evenings studying programming tutorials online, and his weekends on dates with Diana. They went to museums and movies, took walks in the park, and had long conversations over coffee. Diana showed Marcus parts of the city he had never seen, while Marcus showed Diana simple pleasures she had forgotten in her climb to success, like feeding ducks at the pond or watching street musicians perform. One evening, as they sat on a bench watching the sunset, Diana realized something had changed inside her. She wasn't just attracted to Marcus anymore. She was falling in love with him. The thought should have terrified her. She had built her whole life around being independent, strong, and in control. Love was messy and unpredictable and could ruin everything she had worked for. But as she watched Marcus laugh at something a child was doing in the playground nearby, she couldn't bring herself to be afraid. This man had already changed her life in ways she was just beginning to understand. Marcus, she said quietly. Yeah. I'm glad you crashed into my car. Marcus looked at her with those honest brown eyes that had captured her heart from the very beginning. Me too. As they sat together watching the stars come out, neither of them knew that their biggest test was still ahead of them. 2 months into Marcus's training program, things were going better than anyone had expected. He had mastered the basics of project management and was starting to write simple code under David's guidance. His natural talent for problem solving was becoming more obvious every day, and several clients had specifically requested that he be involved in their projects. But success brought its own challenges. I'm concerned about something, Sarah said to Diana during their weekly staff meeting. Marcus is doing great work, but some of the other employees are starting to make comments. Diana frowned. What kind of comments? Nothing too serious yet, but I've heard a few people wondering why he got fast-tracked into the training program when we usually hire people with college degrees or previous experience. There are also some whispers about your relationship with him. Diana felt her stomach tighten. She had been dreading this conversation but knew it was inevitable. What exactly are people saying? That he's getting special treatment because you two are dating. That he wouldn't be here if it weren't for the accident and your personal interest in him. Diana was quiet for a moment, processing this information. She had been careful to treat Marcus like any other employee during work hours, but apparently it wasn't enough. What do you think I should do? She asked. I think you need to decide what's more important, the company or your relationship with Marcus. Because right now, people are questioning both his qualifications and your judgment. That evening, Diana drove Marcus home in tense silence. She kept thinking about Sarah's words and wondering if she had made a terrible mistake. You're quiet tonight, Marcus said as they pulled up to his building. Everything okay? Diana turned off the engine and sat back in her seat. We need to talk. Marcus felt his heart sink. Those 4 words never led to anything good. What about? Diana told him about her conversation with Sarah and the rumors circulating around the office. With each word, Marcus felt his worst fears coming true. I knew this would happen, he said when she finished. I knew people would think I didn't deserve to be there. That's not what I'm saying. Isn't it though? Marcus's voice was getting louder. You're telling me that people think I'm only there because I'm sleeping with the boss. We're not sleeping together, Diana pointed out. You know what I mean. They think I'm using our relationship to get ahead, and they think you're letting me because you like me. Diana wanted to argue, but she couldn't deny that was exactly what people were thinking. Maybe they're right, Marcus continued, his voice bitter. Maybe I am just charity case you decided to help because you felt sorry for me. Marcus, that's not true and you know it. Do I? Because right now it feels pretty true. They sat in angry silence for a moment before Marcus opened the car door. Where are you going? Diana asked. Home. I need to think about some things. Marcus, wait. But he was already walking toward his building, leaving Diana sitting alone in her car wondering how everything had gone wrong so quickly. Marcus spent the weekend alone in his apartment, alternating between anger and self-doubt. Part of him wanted to quit the job and prove that he didn't need Diana's help. Another part of him was terrified of going back to the warehouse and giving up everything he had worked for. On Monday morning he showed up to work determined to prove himself through his performance alone. But the day went badly from the start. During a team meeting he suggested a solution to a client problem that everyone else thought was too complicated. When he tried to explain his reasoning, one of the senior programmers interrupted him. Look, Marcus, I know you're still learning, but maybe you should listen more and talk less until you have more experience. The comment stung, especially because Marcus was sure his idea would work. But instead of arguing, he stayed quiet for the rest of the meeting. At lunch, he sat alone in the break room, feeling more isolated than he had since his first day. Diana found him there looking miserable. Can we talk? She asked. I don't think that's a good idea. People will see us together and assume the worst. I don't care what people assume. Well, I do. I care a lot because every time someone questions whether I belong here, they're questioning you too. Diana sat down across from him. Marcus, I need you to listen to me very carefully. You are here because you are smart and talented and hardworking. Not because of the accident, not because I like you, and not because I feel sorry for you. You are here because you deserve to be here. Then why does it feel like everyone else disagrees with that? Because change is hard for people. This company has always hired people with traditional backgrounds, college degrees, previous experience, references from other companies. You're different and that makes some people uncomfortable. Maybe they're right to be uncomfortable. Maybe I don't belong in this world. Diana reached across the table and took his hand. Do you want to know what I think? Marcus nodded. I think you're scared. I think this is the first time in your life that you've had something really good, and you're terrified of losing it. So you're looking for reasons why you don't deserve it because that feels safer than admitting how much you want it. Marcus stared at her, hating how well she could read him. Am I wrong? Diana asked gently. No, Marcus said quietly. You're not wrong. So what are we going to do about it? Marcus was quiet for a long moment, thinking about everything he had learned and accomplished over the past 2 months. Then he looked at Diana with new determination in his eyes. We're going to prove them wrong. All of them. How? By making me so good at this job that no one can question why I'm here. Diana smiled. I like that plan. But, Marcus continued, I think we need to be more careful about our relationship at work. Not because I'm ashamed of it, but because I don't want to give anyone ammunition to use against either of us. Diana nodded, understanding. Professional at work, personal outside of work. Exactly. They shook hands across the table, making it official. Then Diana stood up to leave. Diana, Marcus called after her. Yeah. Thank you. For believing in me even when I don't believe in myself. That's what partners do, Diana said, and walked away before Marcus could ask what she meant by that. Over the next month, Marcus threw himself into his work with single-minded determination. He stayed late every night, studied programming tutorials until his eyes burned, and volunteered for every challenging project he could find. Slowly but surely, his skills improved to the point where even the skeptics had to admit he was becoming a valuable team member. The breakthrough came when a major client's website crashed on a Friday afternoon, taking their entire online business offline. The senior programmer assigned to the account was out sick, and the problem was so complex that the rest of the team was stumped. Marcus spent 6 hours digging through thousands of lines of code, tracing the problem back to a small error in a database query that was causing the entire system to overload. When he finally fixed it and brought the website back online, the whole office cheered. How did you find that? David asked, looking at Marcus with new respect. I just kept following the logic until I found where it broke, Marcus said. Like following a trail of breadcrumbs. The client was so impressed that they specifically requested Marcus be assigned to all their future projects. Within a week, 2 other clients had made similar requests. At the next staff meeting, Sarah had a very different report to give Diana. I don't know what you said to Marcus a month ago, but it worked. He's been outstanding lately. The quality of his work has improved dramatically, and his attitude has been great. I think the other employees are finally starting to see what you saw in him. Diana smiled, feeling proud and relieved. He just needed time to find his confidence. Well, he's found it. In fact, I think he's ready for more responsibility. There's a new client project starting next month that would be perfect for him to lead. Diana felt a surge of excitement, both for Marcus and for the company. What kind of project? Small business website with e-commerce integration. Nothing too complicated, but it would give him a chance to manage a project from start to finish. Do it, Diana said without hesitation. That evening, Diana waited until everyone else had left the office before stopping by Marcus's desk to congratulate him on his recent success. I heard about the website crash, she said. Nice work. Marcus looked up from his computer where he was reviewing code for another project. Thanks. It felt good to solve something that nobody else could figure out. How does it feel to know you'll be leading your own project next month? Marcus's eyes widened. What? Diana told him about Sarah's recommendation and her decision to approve it. You really think I'm ready? Marcus asked. I know you're ready. The question is, do you think you're ready? Marcus leaned back in his chair, thinking about how much his life had changed in just 4 months. He had gone from loading boxes in a warehouse to leading technology projects for successful businesses. It still seemed impossible sometimes. Yeah, he said finally. I think I'm ready. Diana smiled. Good. Because I have another surprise for you. What now? The training program officially ends next month, which means you'll be getting a significant pay raise and a promotion to junior project manager. Marcus stared at her in shock. Are you serious? Completely serious. You've earned it. Marcus stood up and for a moment Diana thought he was going to hug her. Instead, he extended his hand for a professional handshake. Thank you, he said formally, for the opportunity and for believing in me. Diana shook his hand, playing along with the professional facade they had maintained at work. But her eyes were warm with affection and pride. You're welcome. Now go home and celebrate. You've got a big month ahead of you. As Marcus packed up his things and headed for the elevator, he felt lighter than he had in weeks. He was succeeding on his own merits now, not because of Diana's help or anyone's pity. He had earned his place in this company and in this new life. But as the elevator doors closed, he couldn't help wondering what would happen to his relationship with Diana now that they were becoming true professional equals. Would it make things easier between them or more complicated? He was about to find out. Marcus's first project as team leader was supposed to be straightforward. Build a simple e-commerce website for a local bakery that wanted to sell their products online. But nothing in business was ever as simple as it seemed. The bakery owner, Mrs. Chin, was a sweet elderly woman who had been running her family business for 30 years. She knew everything about baking but nothing about computers, which made explaining technical concepts a challenge. I just want people to be able to order my cakes from their phones, she said during their first meeting. How hard can that be? Marcus smiled patiently. It's definitely doable, Mrs. Chin. But we need to think about a few things first. How do you want to handle payments? What about delivery schedules? Do you want customers to be able to customize their orders? Mrs. Chin looked overwhelmed. I don't know. I just want to sell cakes. It took 3 meetings and several phone calls for Marcus to understand exactly what Mrs. Chin needed. She wanted customers to browse her menu, place orders for pickup or delivery, pay online, and receive confirmation emails with pickup times. She also needed a way to manage her inventory so she wouldn't accept orders for items she couldn't make. Marcus created detailed project plans, wireframes for the website design, and timelines for each phase of development. He worked closely with David on the programming side and with the design team on creating an attractive, user-friendly interface. 2 weeks into the project, everything was going smoothly. The website was taking shape, Mrs. Chin was happy with the progress, and Marcus was feeling confident about his abilities as a project manager. Then disaster struck. On a Wednesday morning, Marcus arrived at work to find an urgent email from Mrs. Chin. A competitor had launched a similar website the day before, and she was panicking about falling behind in the market. I need the website finished this week, she wrote. Can you make that happen? Marcus stared at the email, feeling his stomach drop. The project was scheduled to take 6 weeks and they were only 2 weeks in. Finishing it in 1 week would require working around the clock and probably compromising on quality. He called Mrs. Chin to explain why rushing the project would be a bad idea, but she was adamant. My competitor is already taking orders online, she said. Every day I wait is money I'm losing. Marcus found himself in an impossible situation. He could either disappoint his first client or push his team to deliver subpar work under impossible deadlines. Neither option was good for his career or the company's reputation. He decided to ask for help. He knocked on Diana's office door, hoping she wouldn't think he was running to her every time he faced a challenge. Come in, Diana called. She looked up from her computer as he entered. How's the bakery project going? That's what I need to talk to you about. Marcus explained the situation, including Mrs. Chen's demand to finish the project in 1 week. Diana listened carefully, asking a few clarifying questions. What do you think you should do? She asked when he finished. Honestly, I think I should tell her it's impossible and stick to the original timeline. But I'm worried she'll fire us and hire someone else who promises to work faster. Diana nodded thoughtfully. Those are both valid concerns. But you're missing a third option. What's that? Negotiate a compromise. Find out what parts of the website she absolutely needs to compete with her rival, and what parts can be added later. Deliver a basic version quickly, then enhance it over time. Marcus felt stupid for not thinking of that himself. A phased approach. Exactly. Launch with the essentials: menu, ordering system, payment processing. Add the advanced features like inventory management and customer accounts in phase 2. Do you think that will work? I think it's worth proposing. The worst she can say is no. Marcus called Mrs. Chen that afternoon and presented the phased approach. To his relief, she loved the idea. You mean I can be online this week and then make it better later? She asked. Exactly. You'll be able to compete immediately, and then we'll add more features over the next month. Let's do it. Marcus hung up the phone feeling energized and grateful. Diana had helped him find a solution that he never would have considered on his own. But more importantly, she had done it by asking questions and guiding him to the answer rather than just telling him what to do. The next week was intense. Marcus and his team worked long hours to deliver the basic website on schedule. David programmed the core functionality while the design team created a clean, simple interface. Marcus coordinated everything, making sure all the pieces fit together properly. On Friday afternoon, they launched Mrs. Chen's website. Within 2 hours, she had received her first online order. By the end of the weekend, she had sold over 50 items. Marcus, you're a miracle worker, she said when she called to thank him. I never imagined it would work so well so quickly. Marcus felt a surge of pride and accomplishment. He had successfully managed his first project, overcame a major obstacle, and delivered results that exceeded the client's expectations. That evening, Diana stopped by his desk after everyone else had left. I heard Mrs. Chin is thrilled with the website, she said. She is. We got lucky with the phased approach. That wasn't luck. That was good problem solving and client management. Marcus looked at her gratefully. Thank you for helping me think through the solution. I was so focused on the impossible deadline that I couldn't see other options. That's what mentors are for, Diana said. But this is probably the last time I'll give you advice on a project. Marcus felt a flutter of panic. What? Did I do something wrong? Diana smiled. Just the opposite. You're ready to handle these challenges on your own now. In fact, Sarah wants to assign you to a much bigger project next month. How much bigger? A complete technology overhaul for a mid-sized manufacturing company. New website, inventory management system, customer database, the works. It's a 6-month project worth about $200,000. Marcus felt dizzy. 3 months ago, he had been making $25,000 a year loading boxes. Now Diana was telling him he would be managing a project worth 8 times his old annual salary. Do you really think I can handle something that big? He asked. I know you can. The question is whether you believe it. Marcus thought about everything he had learned and accomplished since starting at the company. He had mastered new skills, earned the respect of his colleagues, and successfully completed his first project. Maybe he was ready for something bigger. I believe it, he said, and was surprised to realize he meant it. Diana's smile was radiant. Good. Because I have some other news too. More good news, I hope. The best. The company is doing so well that we're opening a second office in Seattle. We need someone to go there for 3 months to set up operations and train the new staff. Marcus felt excited and nervous at the same time. Are you asking me to go to Seattle? I'm asking if you'd be interested. It would be a huge opportunity, essentially running a branch office, hiring staff, managing multiple client projects. It's the kind of experience that could fast-track your career by several years. When would I leave? 6 months from now, after you finish the manufacturing project. Marcus was quiet for a moment, processing this information. 6 months ago, his biggest decision had been whether to spend $3 on lunch or save the money for rent. Now he was being offered the chance to run a branch office in another city. Diana, he said finally, can I ask you something personal? Of course. If I take this opportunity, what happens to us? I mean, to whatever this is between us. Diana had been dreading this question, but she had known it was coming. The truth was, she didn't know what would happen to their relationship if Marcus moved to Seattle. Long-distance relationships were hard under the best circumstances, and they hadn't even figured out what they were to each other yet. I don't know, she said honestly. We'll have to figure it out. Is that fair to either of us? Getting more involved when there's a good chance I'll be leaving in 6 months. Diana looked at Marcus, sitting at his desk in his crisp shirt and tie, looking every inch the successful businessman he was becoming. She had watched him transform from a scared, apologetic man into someone confident and capable. Part of her was proud of his growth, but another part of her was terrified of losing him. Maybe we should take things one day at a time, she said. See what develops naturally without putting pressure on ourselves to define everything right now. Marcus nodded, though he wasn't entirely satisfied with that answer. He was falling in love with Diana, and the thought of leaving her behind in 6 months was painful. But he was also ambitious now in ways he had never been before, and the Seattle opportunity could change his life forever. Okay, he said. One day at a time. As Diana walked back to her office, she wondered if she had just made the biggest mistake of her life. She had fallen in love with Marcus Johnson, but she had also created a situation where success might tear them apart. The next few months would test everything they had built together. The manufacturing company project was the biggest challenge Marcus had ever faced. Hartwell Industries had been in business for 40 years but was still using computer systems from the 1990s. Their website looked like it hadn't been updated since the internet was invented, and their inventory management was done with paper forms and filing cabinets. Marcus spent his first week at Hartwell just trying to understand how they currently operated. He interviewed employees, studied their processes, and documented their needs. What he found was a company that was losing money and customers because they couldn't keep up with modern business practices. We need to bring you into the 21st century, Marcus told Mr. Hartwell, the company owner, during their planning meeting. That's what I'm hoping you can do, Mr. Hartwell replied. But I want to make sure we do this right. One of my competitors tried to update their systems last year and it was a disaster. They lost orders, confused customers, and almost went out of business. Marcus understood the concern. Updating a company's entire technology infrastructure was like performing surgery on a patient who couldn't afford to stop working. One mistake could be fatal. He spent 2 weeks creating a detailed project plan that would modernize Hartwell's systems gradually, with extensive testing at each phase. The website would be rebuilt first, then the inventory system, then the customer database. Everything would be integrated carefully to ensure nothing was lost in the transition. The project consumed Marcus's life for the next 4 months. He worked 12-hour days, spent weekends testing systems, and dreamed about database queries and website code. But gradually the project came together. The new website was sleek and professional, with features that allowed customers to browse products, check availability, and place orders online. The inventory system tracked every item in real time and automatically updated the website when products were out of stock. The customer database stored purchase history and preferences, allowing Hartwell's sales team to provide better service. When they launched the complete system in February, the results were immediate and dramatic. Online orders increased by 300% in the first month. Customer complaints dropped to almost zero because people could track their orders and get accurate delivery dates. Employee productivity improved because they weren't wasting time on paperwork and manual processes. "Marcus, you've saved my business," Mr. Hartwell said during their final meeting. "I was worried we were going to have to close down in a few years because we couldn't compete. Now I feel like we can compete with anyone." Marcus felt a deep sense of satisfaction as he packed up his materials from the Hartwell project. He had taken a struggling company and given them the tools they needed to thrive in the modern marketplace. More importantly, he had done it entirely on his own, without needing Diana's help or guidance. When he returned to the office that afternoon, Sarah was waiting for him with a big smile. "Congratulations," she said. "Mr. Hartwell just called Diana to tell her that this was the best money his company has ever spent. He's already recommending us to 3 other manufacturers." Marcus felt a glow of pride. It was a great project to work on. Challenging but rewarding. "Diana wants to see you in her office when you have a chance." Marcus walked to Diana's office, feeling nervous for reasons he couldn't explain. Over the past 4 months, they had maintained their professional relationship at work while continuing to see each other outside the office. But the Seattle opportunity had been looming over everything, creating an unspoken tension between them. "Come in and close the door," Diana said when he knocked. Marcus sat down across from her desk, noticing that she looked serious. "First," Diana said, "I want to congratulate you on the Hartwell project. That was exceptional work and the client is thrilled." "Thank you." "Second, I have some news about Seattle. The office space is ready, we've hired a local operations manager, and we need someone to go there next month to start setting up client relationships and managing the transition." Marcus felt his heart sink. He had been hoping the Seattle plan would be delayed or cancelled, giving him more time to figure out his relationship with Diana. "Next month?" he asked. "I know it's sooner than we originally planned, but we have 3 major clients who want to work with us there, and we can't keep them waiting." Marcus nodded. Seattle was everything Marcus had hoped it would be and everything he had feared. The city was beautiful, the office space was modern and well-equipped, and the 3 clients Diana had mentioned were eager to start working with Washington Tech Solutions' new branch. But Marcus had never felt more alone in his life. His apartment was in a trendy neighborhood with coffee shops and restaurants, but eating alone every night made him miss the simple pleasure of sharing meals with Diana. The work was challenging and rewarding, but having no one to celebrate his successes with made them feel hollow. He called Diana every night for the first 2 weeks, but the conversations were awkward. There was a 3-hour time difference and they were both busy with work during the day. By the time Marcus got home, Diana was already thinking about bed. By the time Diana was free to talk, Marcus was exhausted from long days of client meetings and team building. "How are things going?" Diana asked during one of their calls. "Good. Really good actually. We signed 2 new clients this week, and I think we'll have the team fully staffed by next month." "That's wonderful. I'm so proud of you." "Thanks. How are things there?" "Busy. We just landed that hotel chain account we've been pursuing for months. Sarah is managing the project, but I think you would have been perfect for it." There was an uncomfortable silence as they both thought about what might have been if Marcus had stayed. "I miss you," Marcus said quietly. "I miss you too." But somehow the words felt inadequate, like they were talking about missing a favorite restaurant that had closed rather than missing the person they loved. After a month in Seattle, Marcus was thriving professionally but struggling personally. He had hired a talented team of programmers and designers, signed 6 new clients, and impressed the company's investors with his progress reports. But he felt disconnected from everything that had made him happy. The breaking point came on a Thursday evening in March. Marcus had just finished a successful presentation to a potential client when his phone rang. It was Diana calling earlier than usual. "Hi," she said, and Marcus could tell immediately that something was wrong. "What's happened?" "Nothing bad. Actually, something good, I think. I wanted to tell you before you heard it from someone else." Marcus felt his stomach tighten. "Tell me what?" "I had dinner with someone tonight. A date. The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. He sat down heavily in his office chair, staring out at the Seattle skyline without really seeing it. "Oh," he said because he couldn't think of anything else to say. "His name is Robert. He's a lawyer who works with some of our corporate clients. He asked me out last week and I said yes." "How was it?" Marcus asked, hating himself for wanting to know. "It was nice. He's intelligent and successful and very polite." "Do you like him?" Diana was quiet for a long moment. "I think I could. Which scares me because I'm still in love with you." Marcus felt tears forming in his eyes. "Diana. I'm sorry. I know this isn't what you want to hear. But I can't keep putting my life on hold waiting for something that might never happen." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that long-distance relationships are even harder than I thought they would be. We talk every night but we're not really sharing our lives anymore. We're just giving each other status updates." Marcus knew she was right, but hearing it said out loud was devastating. "So what happens now?" he asked. "I don't know. Maybe we should take a break from the phone calls for a while. Give ourselves some space to figure out what we really want." "Is that what you want?" "No. But I think it might be what we need." They hung up that night without saying, "I love you," for the first time since Marcus had moved to Seattle. Marcus sat in his empty apartment afterward, wondering if he had made the biggest mistake of his life. Over the next 2 weeks, Marcus threw himself into work with an intensity that worried his new employees. He stayed at the office until midnight, took on extra client projects, and volunteered to travel to potential client sites on weekends. Anything to avoid being alone with his thoughts. The strategy worked professionally. The Seattle office was exceeding all expectations, and Marcus was being praised by company executives for his leadership and business development skills. But personally he felt like he was falling apart. The wake-up call came from an unexpected source. David, his former programming mentor, who called one evening with what he said was an urgent question about a client project. "Actually," David said after they had talked through the technical issue, "I lied about why I was calling." "What do you mean?" "Diana didn't ask me to call you, but I think she would want me to. Are you okay? And I want an honest answer." Marcus was surprised by the directness of the question. "Why are you asking?" "Because Diana looks miserable and from the sound of your voice you do too. What happened between you two?" Marcus found himself telling David the whole story. The long-distance relationship, the awkward phone calls, Diana's date with the lawyer, and their decision to take a break from talking. "So let me get this straight," David said when Marcus finished. "You're both miserable, you're both still in love with each other, but you're not talking because you think it's too hard?" "It's more complicated than that." "Is it?" "Because from where I'm sitting, it sounds like you're both being stubborn and stupid." Marcus felt a flash of anger. "You don't understand the situation. I understand that you're the best thing that ever happened to Diana, and she's the best thing that ever happened to you. And you're both throwing it away because of geography." "It's not just geography. It's time zones and careers and building separate lives." "Marcus," David interrupted, "can I tell you something about Diana?" "What?" "She started that training program because of you. Not for you but because of you. After she met you, she realized how much talent was being wasted because people don't get opportunities. She's hired 4 more people like you in the past 3 months. Smart people without traditional backgrounds who just needed someone to believe in them." Marcus was quiet, processing this information. "She's also been working 16-hour days since you left," David continued. "She says it's because business is good, but I think it's because she doesn't want to go home to an empty apartment and think about what she's missing." "What are you suggesting I do?" "I'm suggesting you stop being an idiot and fight for what you want. If you love her, really love her, then figure out how to make it work. Long-distance relationships are hard, but they're not impossible." After they hung up, Marcus sat in his apartment thinking about everything David had said. Maybe they had given up too easily. Maybe there was a way to make it work if they both really wanted it. He picked up his phone to call Diana, then put it down again. If he was going to fight for their relationship, he needed to do it properly. He needed a plan. The next morning, Marcus walked into his office with more energy than he had felt in weeks. He had work to do, but for the first time since moving to Seattle, it wasn't just professional work. He was going to figure out how to win back the woman he loved. And he was going to do it in a way that proved to both of them that their relationship was worth fighting for. But first he needed to make sure Diana still wanted to be won back. Because if she was serious about the lawyer, Marcus might already be too late. The thought terrified him, but it also motivated him. He had learned a lot about taking risks and fighting for what he wanted over the past year. Now it was time to apply those lessons to the most important challenge of his life. Marcus spent 3 days planning his strategy. He couldn't just call Diana and tell her he wanted to try again. They had already tried the long-distance thing and it hadn't worked. He needed to show her that he was serious about making their relationship a priority, not just something that happened when it was convenient. First, he called Sarah to discuss the Seattle office's progress and his long-term plans. "The team here is solid," he told her during their video call. "We have 8 full-time employees now, 6 major clients, and a waiting list of potential projects. The office is basically running itself at this point." "That's exactly what we hoped for," Sarah said. "You've done an incredible job out there. Which brings me to something I want to propose. What if we hired a permanent Seattle manager and I came back to the main office?" Sarah looked surprised. "Are you unhappy in Seattle?" "No, I love it here. But I think the office would benefit from having someone local as the permanent manager, someone who understands the West Coast market better than I do. I could train them for a month or 2, then transition back to project management in the main office." "Is this about Diana?" Marcus had expected this question. "Partly yes. But it's also about what makes the most business sense for the company." Sarah was quiet for a moment, thinking. "You know Diana is seeing someone, right?" "I heard that. But I also heard it's not serious yet." "Marcus, I don't want to see you get hurt." "I appreciate that, Sarah. But I need to try. If it doesn't work out, at least I'll know I did everything I could." Sarah smiled slightly. "Okay. Let me talk to Diana and see how she feels about bringing you back. But I can't promise anything." "I understand." The next part of Marcus's plan was more personal. He called Mrs. Chin, the bakery owner from his first project. "Marcus, how wonderful to hear from you. How is Seattle?" "It's great, Mrs. Chin. But I'm calling because I need a favor." "Anything. What can I do for you?" Marcus explained what he wanted, and Mrs. Chen was delighted to help. "Of course. It's the least I can do after everything you did for my business." Finally, Marcus called David. "I need you to do something for me," Marcus said. "But you have to promise not to tell Diana." "This sounds dangerous." "Just trust me." On Friday afternoon, Diana was working late in her office when Sarah knocked on her door. "Do you have a minute to talk?" "Sure. What's up?" Sarah closed the door and sat down. "Marcus called me this week. He wants to come back." Diana felt her heart skip a beat, but she tried to keep her expression neutral. "Did he say why?" "He says the Seattle office is ready for a local manager, and he thinks it would be better for business if he came back to project management here." "And you believe that's his only reason?" Sarah smiled. "He also mentioned that he heard you were dating someone but it wasn't serious yet." Diana felt her cheeks warm. "It's not serious. Robert is nice, but he's not Marcus." Diana was quiet for a moment. The truth was she had been trying to fall for Robert for weeks, but it wasn't working. Every time he took her hand, she thought about Marcus's hands. Every time he made her laugh, she remembered how much funnier Marcus was. Every time he kissed her goodnight, she felt guilty for wishing he was someone else. "What did you tell Marcus?" Diana asked. "I told him I'd talk to you." "Diana, I've watched you work yourself to death for the past 2 months trying not to think about him. Maybe it's time to stop running from whatever this is. What if it doesn't work? What if we try again and it falls apart? What if you don't try and spend the rest of your life wondering what might have been?" That evening, Diana had dinner with Robert at an expensive restaurant downtown. He was charming and attentive, telling her about a case he had won that week and asking about her business. But Diana found herself distracted, thinking about her conversation with Sarah. "Diana," Robert said finally, "you seem a million miles away tonight. Is everything okay?" Diana looked at this kind, successful man who was clearly interested in building a relationship with her, and realized she couldn't keep pretending. "Robert, I need to be honest with you about something." "That sounds ominous." "I'm still in love with someone else." Robert set down his fork and leaned back in his chair. "The guy in Seattle that Sarah mentioned. You know about Marcus? I know you've been trying very hard to get over someone since we started dating. I was hoping time would help, but it's clear that's not happening." Diana felt terrible. "I'm so sorry. You're a wonderful man, and you deserve someone who can give you their whole heart." Robert smiled sadly. "I appreciate your honesty. For what it's worth, I hope things work out with him." On Sunday morning, Diana was having coffee in her apartment when her doorbell rang. She opened the door to find David standing in the hallway with a large white box. "Special delivery," he said with a grin. "What is this?" "Marcus asked me to bring it to you. He also asked me to tell you to meet him at the park by the river at 2 o'clock if you want to see him." Diana's heart started racing. He's here? In town? He flew in this morning. Are you going to meet him? Diana looked at the box, then at David's expectant face. What's in here? Open it and find out. After David left, Diana sat on her couch staring at the white box. Part of her was terrified to open it, afraid of what it might mean. But finally, curiosity won. Inside the box was the most beautiful cake she had ever seen. It was decorated with delicate flowers and elegant script that read, "Some things are worth fighting for." Attached was a note in Marcus's handwriting. Diana, Mrs. Chen made this cake specially for you. She says it's her true love recipe, and it only works if both people really mean it. I'm hoping you'll share it with me this afternoon and give us another chance. If you don't come to the park, I'll understand. But I had to try. I love you, Marcus. Diana stared at the note for a long time, tears forming in her eyes. Then she looked at her watch. It was already 1:30. She had never gotten ready so fast in her life. Marcus was sitting on a bench by the river, wearing the same button-down shirt he had worn on their first official date. When he saw Diana walking toward him carrying the cake box, his heart felt like it might burst. "Hi," he said as she sat down beside him. "Hi yourself. This is a beautiful cake." Mrs. Chen was very excited to help. "She says you changed her life with that website." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching ducks swim in the river. "Sarah told me you want to come back," Diana said finally. "I do. The Seattle office is doing great, but I realized something while I was there." "What's that?" Marcus turned to face her. "Success doesn't mean anything if you don't have someone to share it with. I accomplished everything I set out to do in Seattle, but I was miserable because you weren't there." "Marcus, let me finish. I know long distance is hard. I know we both have careers and responsibilities. But I also know that what we have is rare and special, and I was an idiot to let geography come between us." Diana felt tears sliding down her cheeks. "I was an idiot too. I went on those dates with Robert trying to convince myself I could fall for someone else, but it was hopeless. Every time I looked at him, I just missed you more." Marcus reached over and took her hand. "So what do we do now?" "Now we stop being idiots," Diana said, echoing David's words from their phone call. "We figure out how to make this work because you're right, what we have is worth fighting for." Marcus felt a weight lift off his chest that he hadn't even realized he was carrying. "Does this mean you'll give us another chance?" "It means I never should have let you go in the first place." Marcus leaned over and kissed her, and it felt like coming home after a long, difficult journey. When they broke apart, both of them were crying and laughing at the same time. "So," Diana said, wiping her eyes, "tell me about this plan to come back. Are you sure you want to leave Seattle?" "I'm sure I want to be wherever you are. The rest we can figure out." They spent the afternoon in the park, sharing Mrs. Chen's cake and talking about everything that had happened while they were apart. Diana told Marcus about the new training program and the employees she had hired. Marcus told Diana about the Seattle office and the lessons he had learned about leadership and business development. As the sun began to set, they walked back to Diana's apartment, holding hands and making plans for the future. "Marcus," Diana said as they stood outside her building, "I want you to know something." "What?" 6 months ago I was successful but lonely. I had everything I thought I wanted, but I was missing the most important thing. Someone to love who loved me back. You didn't just crash into my car that night. You crashed into my life and made it complete." Marcus pulled her close and held her tight. "I love you, Diana Washington. I love you too, Marcus Johnson. And this time, I'm not letting you get away." As they walked up to her apartment together, both of them knew that they had found something that most people spend their whole lives searching for. They had found not just love, but the kind of partnership that makes both people stronger, braver, and better than they ever could have been alone. 3 months later, Marcus was back in the main office as senior project manager, working alongside Diana to grow the company they had both helped build. 6 months after that, Diana made him a partner in the business. And exactly 1 year after that first crash in the street, Marcus proposed to Diana in the same diner where they had shared pie and coffee and fallen in love. She said yes, of course. And Mrs. Chen made their wedding cake, using her special true love recipe that only works when both people really mean it. Some crashes, it turns out, are exactly what you need to find your way home. The E&D curious and a little nervous. "My company is expanding," Diana began. "We're starting a new training program for people who want to learn programming and web development. It's a 6-month intensive course that combines classroom learning with hands-on experience working on real projects for our clients." "That sounds amazing," Marcus said. "Are you telling me about it because you think I should apply?" I'm telling you about it because I want to offer you a position in the program. Marcus stared at her. What do you mean, offer me a position? I mean, I want you to quit your job at the warehouse and come work for me while you learn. You'll get paid a salary, not as much as you'll make eventually, but enough to live on. You'll work 4 days a week on client projects with my team, and 1 day a week you'll take classes to learn programming, business skills, and project management. Marcus felt like all the air had been sucked out of the room. Diana, I can't accept that. Why not? Because it's charity. You're offering me this because you feel sorry for me, not because I've earned it. Diana shook her head firmly. That's not true. I'm offering you this because you have talent and potential, and because my company needs people like you. David spent an hour with you on Saturday and came to me Monday morning raving about how quickly you picked up programming concepts. That's not something you can fake. But I don't have any experience. Neither did I when I started. Neither did half my employees. Experience can be taught. Intelligence and drive can't be. Marcus stood up and walked to his small kitchen window, looking out at the alley behind his building. The offer was everything he had dreamed about, but it seemed too good to be true. What if I'm not good enough? He asked quietly. What if I fail and waste your time and money? Diana joined him at the window. What if you succeed and change your whole life? They stood in silence for a moment before Marcus turned to face her. Can I ask you something honestly? Always. Are you doing this because you like me? I mean, like me is more than just someone you want to help. Diana felt her heart speed up. She had been asking herself the same question for days. Would that change your answer? I don't know. Maybe. I just need to understand what this is. Diana looked into his eyes and made a decision to be completely honest. Yes, I like you. I like talking to you, I like spending time with you, and I like the person you are. But that's not why I'm offering you this job. I'm offering it to you because you have potential that's being wasted loading boxes in a warehouse. And if I take the job, what happens between us? I don't know, Diana said truthfully. We'll figure it out as we go. Marcus was quiet for a long time, thinking about everything that could go right and everything that could go wrong. Finally, he looked at Diana and saw something in her eyes that made his decision for him. When would I start? Diana smiled so brightly it lit up the whole room. Next Monday if you want. I want, Marcus said, and suddenly Diana was hugging him and he was hugging her back, and for the first time in years he felt like maybe dreams could come true after all. Over the next week, Marcus gave his notice at the warehouse. Jim was disappointed to lose him but happy that he was getting a better opportunity. The owner even gave him a small bonus for fixing the computer system, which Marcus saved for his first week's expenses at the new job. He spent his last weekend at the library, reading everything he could find about programming and business. He also bought his first decent shirt and tie with part of his final paycheck, wanting to make a good impression on his first day. Sunday night he could barely sleep. He was excited and terrified and hopeful all at the same time. His life was about to change completely, and he wasn't sure he was ready. But he was sure he wanted to try.